Just walks there to the stanchion. Obvious frustration.
Christine, how much does it hurt the WNBA when Caitlin Clark is out?
It is devastating to the WNBA when Caitlin Clark is out.
What happens when the one player responsible for dragging an entire sport out of obscurity gets broken by the very system she saved? Well, we're about to find out. Because Caitlin Clark is injured again, and this time, the numbers don't lie. The WNBA is in complete freefall without her.
Facts are facts, and the truth is the truth, and the data is there. And what we saw when Caitlin was out the last time, the 5 games that she missed earlier in the season, the WNBA's viewership dropped more than 50%.
But before I show you just how catastrophic this situation has become, let me paint you a picture of what we just witnessed. Picture this. It's under a minute left in a nationally televised game. The Indiana Fever is up by 8 points against the Connecticut Sun. Caitlin Clark makes a simple pass to Kelsey Mitchell on the back door, turns to run back on defense, and then everything changes. She clutches her groin. That familiar grimace crosses her face. She walks to the end of the court, leans her head against the basket support, and for the first time since losing the national championship, Caitlin Clark breaks down in tears on the basketball court. And guys, that moment right there, that might be the moment the WNBA's house of cards finally collapsed. You see, Caitlin Clark has done the unthinkable. In just a few months, she managed to take a league that had spent decades begging for attention and turned it into a national conversation. She filled arenas that used to sit half empty. She broke viewership records that no one thought were even possible in women's basketball. She sold out games on the road. She moved merchandise like a rock star. And she did all of it with grace, with humility, and with the kind of competitive fire you rarely see, even in the pros. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. And stick with me because these numbers will shock you. The last time Caitlin Clark missed games due to injury, the WNBA's viewership didn't just dip slightly. It didn't just take a small hit. It crashed by over 55%, not just for Fever games, for the entire league. Christine Brennan, the veteran sports journalist, said it best.
Yes, you can make a strong case, and I will make that case, and have, that there is no one single athlete more important to his or her sport or tour, or whatever the circuit is that they play on, than Caitlin Clark is to the WNBA.
Think about that for a second. Tiger Woods was huge for golf, but even when he was gone, golf didn't lose more than half its audience overnight. But the WNBA? Without Caitlin Clark, they're not just back to square one. They're in a financial freefall that's getting worse by the day. And here's where this gets really ugly, because what I'm about to tell you will make your blood boil, if you're a Caitlin Clark fan. For all the attention, all the revenue, all the growth Caitlin Clark has brought to this league, what has she gotten in return? She's been targeted, not just by opponents who see her as the new kid on the block, but by a system that seems more interested in humbling her than protecting her. Game after game, she's taken hits that go beyond normal physical play. She's been shoved, elbowed, blindsided, and dragged to the floor. But wait, it gets worse. Much worse. The referees, they're either blind or they simply don't care. The amount of contact she's endured without getting calls would be scandalous in the NBA. But in the WNBA, it's brushed aside as just physical basketball. And when Clark finally speaks up, she gets gaslit. In that same game against Connecticut, she had an explosive confrontation with referee number 39, an interaction so intense she had to be held back by her coach. Her own brother went on Twitter afterward and said, "Make no mistake, this is on the refereeing." But here's the thing that will absolutely blow your mind. Stay with me because this gets even crazier. Clark, who hadn't missed a game since she was 18 years old in college, is now dealing with her second major injury of the season. You know what's really heartbreaking about all this? Caitlin Clark handles everything with such grace. She handles the pressure, the media spotlight, the attention, the expectations of how she performs on the court, the expectations of the ratings for her games. She handles all of that so well. This season has just been so tough for her when it comes to injuries, and she's never battled injuries before. She's always been someone who's been a very healthy player. But in that moment against Connecticut, when she walked to the end of the court and leaned against that basket support, fighting back tears, she just looked so defeated. And then when she sat on that bench and completely broke down, I realized something. This isn't just about physical pain anymore. This is emotional devastation. This is someone who had given everything to this league and now had to sit and watch as her body failed her again. When Clark responds to the physical play, she gets criticized for being too aggressive. When she doesn't respond, she gets criticized for being soft. It's a no-win situation that the league has created and refuses to address. And now we're seeing the consequences. Before we continue, please do me a favor. Hit that like button so the algorithm knows this story matters. Drop a comment below about how you think the league should fix this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because we are going to keep talking about this until somebody finally listens. Now, let me give you some perspective on just how massive Caitlin Clark's impact really is. The league was already projected to lose $50 million this year. Despite the Clark-driven surge in popularity, without her on the court, those losses are mounting at an alarming rate as television ratings collapse, merchandise sales slow, and attendance figures return to pre-Clark levels. The WNBA averaged just 555,000 viewers this season without Clark, well below last year's average of 670,000. These numbers represent a return to the pre-Clark era of empty arenas and irrelevant games that nobody outside of hardcore fans bothered to watch. Growing up, they teach you one thing above everything else: always protect the money. But the WNBA keeps allowing their moneymaker to get hurt. If she's gone for a year or two, nobody's going to watch. If nobody watches, how are they going to generate revenue? How are they going to pay these players more money during the next collective bargaining agreement? The ripple effects of Clark's injury extend far beyond television ratings and ticket sales, though. Corporate sponsors who invested millions based on the Clark-driven growth are now questioning whether their investments were wise. And trust me, when it's time for that collective bargaining agreement, they are going to point to this and say, well, how can we give you guys all this money? What happens if she gets hurt? That said, the WNBA has to make a public, enforceable commitment to protecting players from dangerous fouls. Start handing out suspensions. Make examples out of players who are clearly targeting opponents with no intention of playing the ball. Send a message that Caitlin Clark isn't a punching bag. She's a professional athlete, and she deserves respect. Can you imagine if the NBA allowed players to spend months targeting LeBron James with dirty plays while claiming it was just competitive basketball? The league would shut that down immediately and issue suspensions faster than you could say flagrant foul. But the WNBA seems perfectly content to let this destructive pattern continue, apparently believing that any attention is good attention. The league needs to wake up and realize that you don't get many chances like this. You don't get a Caitlin Clark every decade. You don't even get her every generation. If they lose her now, whether through injury, disillusionment, or sheer exhaustion, it's not just her career that will suffer. It's the future of the league. But the most tragic aspect of this entire situation is that it didn't have to happen this way. With proper protection and promotion of their star player, the WNBA could have used Clark's popularity to build a sustainable foundation for long-term growth. Instead, they've created a house of cards that collapses the moment their biggest draw steps away from the court. We've seen this pattern play out before. Each incident involving Clark should have been a wake-up call for the league to establish clear standards about player protection and competitive integrity. Instead, each incident has been met with the same tired responses about basketball plays and letting the players play. The irony is that Clark's injury, the very thing the league should have been working to prevent, has provided the clearest possible evidence of her value to the organization. The 55% drop in viewership isn't subtle. The financial devastation isn't hidden. The empty arenas speak for themselves. Yet even with this crystal clear evidence, there's little indication that the WNBA has learned its lesson. The league's failure to protect Clark has created a toxic environment where fans are refusing to watch other WNBA games because they've lost trust in the competitive integrity of the sport. When your own fans are saying they won't watch games without your biggest star because they don't trust that the games will be fairly officiated, you have a serious credibility problem that goes far beyond ratings and revenue. Until the WNBA learns to protect and promote the players who actually drive interest in their league, they'll continue to cycle through these boom and bust periods where one player's presence or absence determines whether anyone bothers to pay attention. The question is whether the WNBA will finally learn to protect their golden goose, or whether they'll continue this destructive pattern until they've completely squandered the opportunity that Clark's popularity has provided. The WNBA had its golden goose, and instead of building a nest around her, they sent her into a cage match with no referees, no rules, and no support. And now, the eggs are breaking. And when those eggs are completely shattered, don't come crying about viewership, don't come crying about revenue, and don't come crying about respect. They had their chance to protect the one player who single-handedly dragged the league from obscurity into the spotlight, and they blew it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that like button if you want to see more deep dives into the biggest sports controversies. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because we're covering all the drama, all the controversy, and all the stories that everyone else is afraid to tell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.